this because I'm trying to grasp.
Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got Jen Goldman here, and she is a business transformer, and she is going to talk to us about various aspects of with clients, changing techniques to get buy-in and reduce fear, 5 operational elements, profitability. I'm really happy to have her on, and I'm really happy to pick her brain. So, Jen, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, briefly talk about your background, your experience, and we'll dive into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm from Buffalo, New York originally. I am now telling people I came from a very financially insecure family, good middle class, solid family, but insecure about money. And in my teens, I started taking jobs at businesses, just as your lowly little employee. And every time I was in a business, I was trying to improve it. It was like my addiction. And so then I went to M&T Bank, worked on overhauling some of the processes and procedures for part of the bank. And that was when I was 19. And then, yes, during college, and I did it for my college campus. And then I went to Boston, decided finance was crucial, and I wanted to be financially free and independent. So I became the first rookie trainee in a certified financial planning program at one of the largest wirehouses in the country. Then went on to work at the largest family office firm in the country. So we worked with great businesses, CEOs like Yankee Candle, those type of people. And that's when I just absolutely fell in love with scaling up businesses and really just making everything hum and making people in the business feel amazing about it. And the story kind of tracks to theme leaders that were leading bigger businesses and they weren't happy. And I'm thinking, it's got to be a better way. Yeah, so I started consulting, and 20 years later, this is where I sit. Still here.
Mm, yeah. Talk about 5 operational elements to make your business more valuable.
Yeah. I think let's start from the top because it matters whether you're a leader or entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. Obviously, we know it's people. Like we can read more than enough about it. But the operational element of that is knowing levels of authority and responsibilities. So that is absolutely crucial. And that's where you need to start and do it as a team. I think the days of doing it in by yourself and not together it's just old. You can't do that anymore. So that's one. Two is that financial freedom, knowing your numbers, even as basic as taking your old operating expenses and comp and so forth, and then just doing forward projections, not because you're going to lock into them, because you have to see a little bit of the future. Well, you get that. And three is tech mapping. Let's not ignore the fact that tech is there and we want to use it to support our people, really visualizing out your map of all your tech and what's talking there, what data is going and all that fun stuff. So that's number three. Number four is knowing your customer experience and journey. Where's the friction for your team and for the customer or the client, mapping that out and knowing all of that. And then number five is I call it the glue or the circle around everything. It's your master plan. It's the idea of writing down what you want to do, what you need to do, what order, and what's the benefit of each thing you're doing. So some might call that a business plan. You can call it, I call it a game plan. I'm an ex-sports person, whatever you want, but visualizing that piece. It's a lot. Wow.
Mm, yeah. And so, talking about business transformation and growth, what are the most common roadblocks businesses face when trying to scale?
Their head game, right? This idea of what do I want to be when I grow up? When you're in the business, you forget about your own forward thinking and future, or you ignore the warning signs. So I think to be fair, that is the biggest hurdle. Most businesses come and say it's tech is the hurdle, or they don't have the right people in the right seats. And that all of that is part of it. But at the end of the day, it's just having that clear vision of where you want to go and knowing that whatever vision you have today will change. That's okay. But at least to have the vision of where you want to be or what you want to do. And that's a really hard one. You could see it in my face. It's hard for me too. I'm a business owner. You're a business owner, right? That's not so easy to answer, but spending a little time on that is really the most important. It's
Mm,
easy. Once you build the plan, the implementation is not hard. But how can you build a plan if you don't know where you're going?
mhm. And how do you assess a business to determine its transformation strategy?
We do the visuals, like I was talking about. And the minute you start doing visuals, they start answering. They'll start going, oh, this isn't right, or that's not right, or this is what I want to do, or When you draw out what currently exists in terms of the people and their systems and their goals and their customer experience, like all of that, they actually answer it for you. So I don't know if that's really an answer. It's not,
Oh,
it's in you. We just have to pull it out, have to get it out in a way that there's no fear and only embracing what you want to accomplish.
yeah. And what about change management and overcoming resistance? What are some proven techniques to get buy-in from teams and reduce fear during change?
Yeah. Uh, so we didn't know this for many years, but this idea of doing the visuals, I've been doing it in all the companies that I've worked in or run. Visuals actually, there's science behind it. We're lucky to say that when you do the visualization, you actually calm down the amygdala, which is your whole fight or fight, and you activate the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal is calm, it's rational, it's less emotional, and that's really what you need to accept change, understand change, adopt it. So by us visualizing, that's how we're accelerating through. We don't sit here and brag about the ROI or the return on energy, ROE. You can get that 10, 20% profit jump. You can get valuations from 6x in under a year or two when
Mhm.
you do these techniques. Because again, the minute you do them collaboratively and the minute you visualize them and get them out of your head, which, is really difficult place for them to live, everybody chimes in, everybody starts to relax a little bit, the fear level goes down, and you start to open up and really think clearly. So
Mm.
it's not rocket science. It's been around for so long. It's just a matter of just doing it, right? And not being afraid that it's not the most beautiful visuals either. This is not about, you're not a graphic designer or an illustrator, right?
Mhm. How can leaders effectively communicate and implement change without overwhelming their team?
Be open, be really open and transparent. If I could steal from the Brene Browns of being vulnerable, be open. Let me give an example. So almost all businesses, we have some lack of clarity around authority and responsibilities. Right? So instead of trying to write it all out in a bubble without the team, it is so much better to sit with the team and everyone write out, here are all my responsibilities. Think like sticky notes. Here's a level of authority I have on things where I can decide and strategize versus manage or do, right? Those are levels of authority. And to do that as a team is a whole new way of thinking about it, but that's the leap forward. That's where you get this kind of incredible result. So
Mhm.
that's just one of many.
Moving on to operational efficiency and productivity, what are the 5 operational elements that make a business more valuable?
Skilled people. I'm supposed to start, of course, with revenue, right? But the fact is, in a day and age with talent, it's
Mhm.
skilled people. It's skilled people that are motivated, that are critical thinkers and strategic. That's big. I see more and more acquisitions for the talent than I actually do for the customer client base. So that's one. Two, certainly a sustainable revenue model, one that continues to produce and have some type of predictability to it. So that's a huge piece. Uh, would I say, I don't know if I would say there's really anything more than that, except, of course, a need, right? What are the trends in the market? Is there a long term life to it? This can't be like the short, quick, fixy type of company that could be out of business in a year. So that's going to be part of it too. Is what industry are you in? Are you filling a need that doesn't need have longevity to it?
Mhm.
It's hard to
Interesting.
see when you're inside of your own business, though.
The next question is profitability and financial stability. And what are the key drivers of long term profitability, and how can businesses maintain financial stability?
You probably answer that better than me. Long term financial stability is, like I alluded to, the P&L projection and knowing your numbers and taking a look at that. So, for example, when we talk about improvements, we don't just talk about them on a planning board, and we don't just talk about them visually. We actually go to the P&L projection and we stick them in there and say, listen, how's that going to look for our bottom line, and how's that going to look for our ratios?
Mhm.
Be more specific. Ratios around how much are we spending on our humans versus how much are we spending on operating, the rent, the tech, all of those different things. There is healthy ratios in different industries. With service industries, there's definitely going to be a heavier amount of money spent on people. That is just a common, everybody knows that. In a product industry, there's going to be definitely heavier amount spent on the technologies of it and the internal operations. So knowing your ratios, looking at them and making sure they stay stable with industry standards is super important. And also projecting out. This idea of talk about a new hire, everybody says, okay, we want the new hire. Great. What month do we want it in? Because some businesses have cyclicality too, right? Like maybe the revenue only comes in once a week. Sometimes the revenue comes in once a month, once a quarter, or sometimes you have hot times of the year and then slow times. So you want to plan out those expenses, right, around when you have the revenue stream that you're predicting. And that actually, by looking at that, as hard as it is, and I can assure you, we've worked with over 700 businesses at this point in depth, and they're not looking at the numbers. I don't even care if they're in finance. They're not looking at the numbers. It's hard, but the numbers are data. And if you're looking at them and then you're playing around with them going forward, you will absolutely have more predictability of what your bottom line looks like. And frankly, you'll have more predictability in your top line because by looking at what's happening on the bottom line, you're instantly know what you need to do for business development.
Yeah. In your experience, what financial mistakes do businesses commonly make and how can they avoid them?
One, not looking at your numbers. For smaller businesses, don't mix personal and business. I get creative accounting, I understand it, but have the books be clean and true. So you really understand what the business is bringing in and what it's spending. That's really important. 3, we wouldn't work with any business that isn't using something like a QuickBooks or a Xero or some other system. No such thing as using Excel. Like you must be in a standard accounting system. What's another one? Not using a bookkeeper. I can't tell you how many times we get into businesses where a spouse is doing the books or they're doing the books in the business. Absolutely not. That is, it pays tenfold to have an outside party that knows what they're doing to go in and actually do the books for you and produce the reports and put them in front of you every month.
So we have a few minutes remaining. And so one thing that I really found intriguing was this power of mindset. And you said the power of visual in mindset. What specific techniques or how does visualization impact business success and leadership effectiveness?
Yeah. So a specific technique, I'll just go a really simple one. We'll go back to the whiteboards. I love it if a business has an actual physical location, first of all, having whiteboards in the hallways and writing down what the goals are. And you can write down a goal and then put a big fat question mark next to it because it's fluid, right? That's one thing, or writing down your major initiatives. Let's say you have an entire remote workforce, right? We have these called these electronic whiteboards. I always tell people start your team meetings, start your quarterlies or your strategy meetings or whatever you use. Let's say use EOS. Start them with a visual board of here's where we are, here's where we were, here's where we are, like a slide deck, and here's where I'd like to see us going. Again, all of this is just simple. We happen to use Lucid, which is a lot more, it could be more intense for some, but again, it's think like a sticky note board, right? Where you're like throwing those sticky notes up and having ideas. It's called brain bursting. It's a good thing, not a bad thing by Stanford, but yeah, there's so many. So just, I'm going to say whiteboarding would be the answer, getting it out of head and into systems. And then for business planning and strategy visualization, we actually use boards like people are familiar with. We use Asana, but there's ClickUp and Monday and Notion. There's so many where they have almost like those tile type of structure. And so we say, let everybody in and everybody throw in tiles into the board and then start rearranging.
Yeah. The other question I have for you is just what are the biggest lessons you've learned about running and transforming business over the years? And if you could give one piece of advice of entrepreneurs facing growth challenges, what would it be?
What I've learned that we are emotional creatures, that we make decisions emotionally more than we should. Advice, have a coach. I mean, we're a consultant, and I've always had a coach, always had a coach. Because the fact is, you need somebody else to see you for who you are and where you want to go as a leader, as an entrepreneur. And you also need somebody to be able to tell you the honest truth who's not as emotionally attached. So that's my advice.
Yeah. How can people find you and reach out to you and learn more from you?
Yeah. myvirtualclo.com. Not too hard to find me there. And from there, there's LinkedIn and all those fun places. So if you just put in my name and that company, you'll find me.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on and for a great conversation.
Thank you. Like a speed talk.